Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the GMB Show. Now, before we begin, I actually want to thank all of my listeners out there. We received some really great feedback and some comments about the wonderful guests that we've had on the show, and we couldn't do this without great people coming on the show. And today we have another wonderful person that's joining with us today. And today we have Vincent Thibault here with us. How you doing, man?
Very good yourself.
Great. I'm wonderful today. I want to just brief introduction about Vincent. Vincent, actually, it's interesting. He and uh, I don't know how far back we've communicated. This is actually the first time we've talked in this format before, but way back on your first book, I remember reading your first book, and then I had the privilege, of course, and the pleasure to writing the foreword to your new book that we'll be talking a little bit about today. Um, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself, a little bit of background, and then we can get into the meat of the topic for today?
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm super happy, super excited to be here. Thank you so much for the
Thank
opportunity.
you. Thank you.
I've always been a big fan, actually, of GMB, so
Great, great.
it's an honor. And well, a bit about myself. Basically, I do two things in life. One of which is having a weird pronunciation with English sometimes.
I think it's
No,
wonderful. No problem at all. Yeah.
well, maybe you guys will have Ryan translating it for you at some point, or closed captioning brought to you GMB.
There you go.
But yeah, basically, I do two things. I'm a writer, so I've been publishing about a dozen books, but most of them are published in French.
Hmm.
And these include actually both fiction and nonfiction. So I do write novels, and I'm actually working on screenplays right now. And I've been writing books for about 10 years, I'd say. And I'm also a what we call ADD in French, Art du Déplacement, or Parkour instructor. So I co-founded the ADD Academy of Quebec, or the Parkour Academy set in Quebec City in Canada. But I travel in a bunch of different countries and coach a bit. And I actually wrote two books on the subject. So this is what we're going to be talking about.
Great intro. And just simply the fact that you are writing and are a damn good writer. I haven't read any of your books in French. Obviously, I don't speak French at all. That's why I was so nervous about pronouncing your last name. The books that you have written, a lot of people might hear that you've written a book about parkour and think that it's specifically focused on the actual application, the drills, the movements and things, when actually it's not. It's the philosophy really of parkour. And that is what really drew me in, not just to your first book, but also when I was reading the draft of your second one. As I mentioned, when I wrote to you about this, I said it felt like kind of Miyamoto Musashi's The Book of Five Rings, in that it wasn't just okay, this is how you do it, and here's the steps to something, but little snapshots in time of philosophies which you could pull out and use depending on where you are in your particular parkour practice, which I think is wonderful. And so, which leads me to asking this question is, what was really the inspiration for writing this book and the way that you did it?
Uh, as a matter of fact, you are entirely right about the fact that no, these books are not about techniques proper. They're not about, say, I think you've probably seen another book recently about strength training, strength parkour training, or something like
Yeah,
that.
Ryan by
I've
Ryan.
read
Yeah,
uh,
Ryan Ford's. Yes, yes.
yeah, they've been on the show, right?
Yes, yes. Ryan is actually a good friend of mine as well. Yeah, very good book, and so different than yours, which I think is refreshing. But sorry to go back to your book though, the philosophy. Yeah,
I was just giving the guys a shout. I haven't read the
yeah.
book though, but
Really neat guys. Really neat guys.
so I think basically there are lots of books. Well, more and more books on either conditioning or how to make actual vaults or movements or techniques. But this is one layer, which is obviously very important. The technical and physical aspects of our disciplines, and I said that plural, disciplines, as in it could be martial arts or something else, but the physical and technical aspects is one layer.
Hmm.
Super important, obviously, but there's actually um, deeper richness. Is that a word?
Yeah, yes, yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, and often people they do see parkour. We live in a YouTube era or a YouTube culture, right? So people they just see, they see the movies and stuff, and they see like the rooftops from rooftops
Yeah.
jumps and crazy stuff, and some of them is very visual and very entertaining. I agree with that. It's very nice to look at, uh, but most people don't see that this is actually just as rich as, say, martial arts, for instance. And in martial arts, uh, everybody knows that martial arts are like centuries old, or they've been around for thousands of years in some cases. And everybody knows that the actual martial arts master is actually an icon of wisdom and love and
Yeah.
compassion and and patience and all those things, right? We know that. It's kind of part of it's a big cliche, but we've seen that. But parkour is relatively recent in the history of movement. Well, people have been moving around forever,
Hmm.
but I mean parkour proper. And I often use the French term for several reasons, which we can talk about later if you want, but
Sure.
often I use the term art du
Hmm.
déplacement, or ADD, which is an
Hmm.
acronym,
Hmm.
which so does not refer to attention deficit disorder. But this is so relatively recent, right? And people, they've only been in touch with it in most cases with movies and stuff like that, and they don't yet to see that. So I think it's really important. So both for the layman and non-practitioners alike, and for the practitioners also to develop a deeper understanding of their art. And not only that, I also wanted a book. You've been giving examples of martial arts classics, for instance, and for me, well, just like you, probably you come from a martial arts background, and um, I've always found some comfort in these books. I mean, it helped me build a healthier, like a general outlook in life, not just in my martial arts training. And I've actually realized that many people were not into martial arts at all. They were like businessmen or businesswomen, and getting inspired from the Book of Five Rings or whatever martial arts classics. And I sort of wanted, in a very humble way, of course, but I wanted to try to give people ideas for the general life, not just training.
And you have, and that's why, that's really why looking at the book, and not, and again, not just this recent book, but the book before, kind of I think laid the groundwork for you to be able to follow up with your current book. But you know, just like what you said, and with our background in martial art, and especially me over here in Japan, it's not just the physical aspect of it, because everything that we do, the mental part of it plays such a huge role in it. And little things like, for example, to just make an example in your book, one of the sections that you have that's in there is called "Don't Jump," and so uh, for those of you who haven't written it, it's just looking at, there's a day where you're standing on the ledge and you're looking at jumping, and all your friends around you are like, oh, you can do it, blah, blah, blah. But maybe that's not the day for you to jump. So you back off, and instead you decide, no, today I'm not going to jump. And it takes a lot of not physicality, but that mental clarity for you to understand whether or not that you're ready for that, for that particular jump at that day, during that time of the day and whatnot. And like you were saying before, is being able to read and go deeper and look at some of not just the philosophy, but why we do the things that we do, not just in parkour, but how it can relate to everything in life, and to help us bring in more of that clarity. I think you nailed it in your book here. And so when I was reading this, and even though I do enjoy doing parkour, I can see this as a book that anyone could enjoy. And again, whether it be for business or whatnot, like you said with the Book of Five Rings, I could see this also relating to things like that as well. So,
Thank
um,
you very much. I appreciate. I do. Thanks.
yeah, something that really jumped out with me is the fact that a lot of people and you mentioned this, think of parkour as just something where you jump from building to building and you do these cool tricks and then you post a video to Facebook or YouTube.
It's
And
all about videos,
it is,
right?
man. You got to get that shot. You got. And I was actually just joking about that yesterday with a few people. Yeah, you just got to make sure it looks good on Facebook. Um, it's people are so result driven in our society now, and they're constantly looking at, let's say, a particular trick or something that they want to achieve. But really, it's all about the process, right? And so it's something that you do touch on in one of your, uh, not even chapters, but one of your sections of your book was focusing on the process and making sure that uh, working with that is your main priority. So, in terms of what you're doing in terms of your writing, and so this is actually something that kind of interests me is that when you set out to write a book, of course you want to write the book, the entire book, but you've got to focus on the process of setting things up. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about that in regards to maybe your writing and as well as your parkour and teaching and your lifestyle and that.
Well, just to give a bit of context for the guys out there and the listeners who maybe haven't seen the first book, it was a bit shorter. Actually, I might have a copy here, just so that I know what we're talking about. This is I don't know if you guys can see that, but the cover of the English translation of the first book. I actually wrote that one in French, but anyway. So Parkour and Art de Déplacement, Strength, Dignity, Community. Uh, and then I wrote the one which you were talking about right now, which is with a subheading called Lessons in Practical Wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
This consists of about 90 short chapters. Okay, so these are just like a bunch of different ideas, and some of them you can apply them to your daily life, but maybe you can just pick any one you want at any time. It has been meant so that you can carry the book to your session in your backpack with just a couple of pages or minutes of reading. You can find a bit of inspiration for the day. So maybe some of the ideas we're going to explore today, maybe they won't appeal to you that much today, or maybe some will appeal to you. It doesn't mean uh, it doesn't mean that it won't apply at some point in your training. And I think I think you've nailed it by talking about this very chapter. I think it's chapter 8 or something.
Yes, in chapter 8. Yeah, yeah.
Focus on the process. Uh, I think you've nailed it somehow by approaching our discussion while talking about this very subject, because we're so obsessed by the tangible, like the quantitative, like we're always aiming for numbers, or and we've been raised like that, like many of us, and socially this is like an obsession, and somehow it has been polluting movement training and sports, and and I'm not. I'm trying to be very careful there, not to be, bad mouthing other
Sure.
stuff. But I'm just gonna give one example. I know many guys in CrossFit. They do, they know how to work properly. They're awesome guys, but some of them, they're just obsessed by numbers, and they're not into quality at all, quality of motion or quality of movement.
Sure.
Actually, screwing their backs and stuff like
Right,
that.
right.
So once again, just to be clear, I'm not saying this is all CrossFit people, misbehaving or something. But this is just something we see often. And I think the most important thing is to actually be able to enjoy the path. And sometimes even more than the destination itself, because the destination, it's never, we never really get there. Somehow we can always improve. And even at some point, now we're, some of the listeners will be in their 20s, some in their 30s, 40s, maybe older and stuff. At some point, you get to a certain age, what does it mean to be strong, right?
Yes.
Are you going to do like strict muscle ups, like 5, 10 in a row at 75? I don't think so. Maybe.
Maybe, yeah, but
But like your goals are gonna change, your body's gonna change. You might as well enjoy the process. And it's funny that you evoked my writing, because obviously when I sit and I'm writing, I have an idea of the goal. I know it's not. I know it's going to be a novel, or not. Or a book of about 90 or 100 lessons or
Uh-huh,
whatever
uh-huh.
on a given subject. I know where I'm going. I'm not saying you should not have a direction. This is something completely different.
Yeah.
Direction is very important, or direction,
No,
depending
that's
on where you're
wonderful.
from.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But a sense of direction is about is is very important, obviously. Uh, but once you know where you're going, then just enjoy the path, and this is very important. And when I'm writing, oh, sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
No, please continue. Continue. Please continue. Yes.
Oh, it's just answering. When I'm writing, I'm actually enjoying just sitting there. I was gonna say the typing machine was the word, the old
Yeah,
thing. It's a
yeah,
computer. I mean,
typewriter.
it's a
Yeah,
computer, guys.
yeah, yeah.
But I'm sitting in the computer, working on the keyboard and stuff, and I'm actually enjoying this and just imagining and or thinking I'm with somebody else or with one of my students, and this makes up for a very personal kind of writing.
Mm,
Sometimes
nice.
it's like if you're sitting right there, but I'm actually sharing stuff. This is a no BS approach, I call. But I think this is of far more importance, being present in the moment.
Such a good, this is exactly what I love talking about is that awareness and presence and being in the moment. And I do think, as I get older, I know that there are particular goals that I have, but like you said, it's being there and being present and appreciating the now. And the main thing being enjoyment. And so when I was younger, of course, there are particular things. Oh, I want to get this, or I want to be able to do a particular skill or whatnot. And I think that had I gone, if I were able to go back when I was a little bit younger and say, hey, listen, man, you can enjoy what you're doing, and it actually will help you to get to your goal in a better way, then you know would have been nice to have me there tapping myself on the shoulder telling me that. But it's very interesting for me to hear about your writing as well, because when we talk about presence and movement and what we're doing in our practice, a lot of people think that it's only about that movement practice. But this applies to everything we do in life, whether it be me talking with you right now, not thinking about what I have going on the rest of the day, me being involved and making sure that I listen to my daughter or what she's saying and enjoy that moment. So focus on the process. And that's what I really like about this particular chapter of your book and how you reference it. As we get older, whether it be your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, all the way to the 70s, we all have a different route that we're going. And in your book, in another chapter, actually, I'm looking at my notes here, chapter 32, you talk about the most efficient route. And I really like this because what might be efficient for me might not be efficient for you. And looking at what is really good for each person. Could you expand a bit upon on that concept?
Uh, Actually, this is like something that comes up all the time in Parkour discussions. Every time we talk about this, oh, what is it? People they don't know what really it is, and we're trying to make up these elaborate definitions. And often we hear that Parkour or art de déplacement
Mhm.
is all about moving from point A to point B in the most efficient manner. This is like a phrase we hear very often.
All the time, yeah.
And well, first of all, like I said, we might see how do you say shades of meanings, or subtle differences between parkour and then free running and then art de déplacement and all these things. But you know, either way, it's really interesting to think about what does it mean to move efficiently. You know, and when we ask that question, speed is often
Mm,
the first criteria that
mm,
comes to mind. You know, uh, roughly, if you've got an obstacle, instead of skirting around it, or you know you just vault over it, and that's fair enough, right? So speed is part of the answer, right? And then we say that economy often comes next,
Yeah.
instead of burning your energy and doing like a shit technique or not knowing how to get there
Hmm.
and struggling and well, you've got a proper technique, and then you've got the body conditioning, you've got the strength and mobility and so forth to do things properly, in with economy. But to me, that is not enough. uh, to me, speed and efficiency are not enough for a movement or anything really to be efficient. And the example that I often give, if it were efficient, you know, if speed and economy was enough, then just think, for example, of this huge jump that would be super fast, super quick, and that would be somehow you have the leg power to do it, without being exhausted if you do land it properly,
Yeah.
but it would be so far that it would have like 50% chances of not working and breaking a leg or something. It's just like a stupid example. It's very trivial, you say, but
Mm.
you know, then that would not be efficient at all.
Mm.
So that leads us to a third element, which would be safety, yeah, or consistency or predictability or reliability. I like that. So to me, a good or efficient vault or movement or technique or whatever could be done many times in a row with consistent results. Uh, we see kids sometimes they're doing like cool, flashy moves that seem to rely for a large part on chance.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
is not what I call a technique. I mean, they have to explore and it's fine, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really, but it's very different. So that's three elements. But
Hmm.
to me, it's not even enough because at the end we don't really care, how long it's going to take you to make a rough and stuff like that. Sometimes you have to test yourself, right? You could do a little competition with your friends or with yourself. It's fine. You have to test your skills and new movements all the
Uh-huh.
time. It's important. We do it all the time. A jump on a rail is either landed or not. You cannot like do it halfway or something. So you have to test yourselves. But somehow it will, like moving from point A to point B in the fastest way possible will rarely be an issue.
Mm.
And we're having fun with this because sometimes, somehow we always hear this like, but what if there was a zombie invasion or something? But yes, what if,
Yeah, what if? Yeah.
maybe then athletes and like parkour people will have like a better chance of survival. I don't know, possibly, but frankly, this will rarely be an issue,
Mhm.
and that is why this is so important to actually enjoy the process because that's what we do. We actually train. We training is repeating mostly, and so it all comes down to what is the most efficient way because if people see us training in art de déplacement, you're gonna go like, guys, this is so not efficient. You're like walking backwards on all fours on a stairways or a staircase. Like this is not efficient. I
Yeah.
better climb it regularly, or take the elevator or something. The most efficient way is the most efficient way for you. And what I mean by there is the most efficient way is whichever one here and now at your point of life or at your point in your training for that day, whichever way will make you grow the most. You and your training partners, because it's not just about you. So it's whatever way will bring you joys and challenges and rewards. So that's what we should think of when we think of the most efficient way. If it's not bringing any challenges, if it's not bringing any rewards and joys, and then it's not efficient training anyway.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely wonderful. I completely agree. And you bring up a very good point there of community. And and this is also something, of course, that you have now. I'm going to bring this up right now, is you have new your new pages that you've created called Meaning in Motion. And a big thing about this is the community. And in your book you discuss this a lot. It's similar to martial art in the sense that when you do parkour, when you move, you are the one who has to do it. But it's not just about you. It's about the people around you and giving back and being a better version of yourself for someone. And talk a little bit about meaning and motion, and let us know what's going on with that.
Well, the community aspect, first of all, is so important to what we do in art de déplacement. And maybe, and I'm trying to be very careful here because so many people in English speaking countries, for one thing, but many people around the globe will use parkour,
Mm.
because that's the word they heard,
Sure.
and it's
Even
easier to.
me, yeah, that's yes, yes, yeah.
I mean, that's probably easier to pronounce or translate or
Mm.
somehow to use. Probably easier than art du déplacement or something, right? And but in some cases, parkour would be more akin to a sport. In
I
some
see.
cases, I'm
Sure.
trying to
Okay.
be very careful there because I know countless awesome people who are really into community and like they have this incredible heart, packed with love and helping each other all the time and they've got the right spirit. So don't get me wrong, please. But some some places I travel sometimes and what I see is all about the ego, and that's
Mm,
so different.
mm,
That's so different than from what we actually do in Art de Déplacement in Quebec and a bunch of places in France and all around the world too, an actual community that understood what it was about. It's not just a sport. Sport is fine, it's good, but it's very different. It's a discipline that is uh, more rich than just
mm.
a sport. Okay, and uh, sometimes say I go to a given city and people are going to say, hey, we're like 50 guys, we're meeting, like every week or something, you know. This is a huge community and they're really proud using that word community. But once you get there, what you see is actually like one super athlete doing these massive feats and crazy big ass jumps. He's very good. And 49 kids just like clapping and, being shy because they don't know what to
Mm.
do. Nobody's there to help them and stuff. This is not a community. This is an illusion of a community. And furthermore, we have to understand where it comes from. Art de déplacement, or ADD as we often
Uh-huh.
call it here,
Huh.
um, it comes back to the Yamakasi founders. Okay, Yamakasi. Uh, you're in Japan right now. I can tell. Uh, People often just assume it comes from Japanese because it
Yeah.
kind of sounds like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Yama means mountain.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
at first I thought it had something to do with the climbing and stuff years ago. It actually comes from Congo. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
please, like it's a language called Lingala,
Yeah.
and it means strong body, strong spirit, strong human being,
Mm.
and their definition of strength, because many of the Yamakasi founders actually became good friends, their definition of strength is so inspiring. So inspiring. I mean, I remember once I was with Charbel, one of the Yamakasi founders. We were in Paris at the time, and we were in a cafe, and somehow this moment got stuck in me. Like it was really inspiring, and he just told me, he looked at me and he was like, the day you're into a car accident and like you can't walk, and your doctor tells you you're just not gonna walk ever again, and that's it. From now on, this is your life. What's strength? What is strength
Mm.
really? Like you're not gonna be able to do these crazy deadlifts, but you can be super strong anyway, right?
Yeah.
So and this might sound like a trivial example once again, but I think this is really important to understand the meaning of strength. Because if you understand the meaning of strength properly, then the meaning of community will
Mm.
become very clear. Strength in the vision of the Yamakasi founders was I'm not becoming stronger for myself. I'm becoming stronger to help my friends become stronger, right? And to uplift them and
Yes.
uphold the community.
Yes.
And it was really a thing about family back in the times. One of the guys, Jan Notre, he comes from the from some islands where, like it was a family thing. He actually had to climb trees to get coconuts and stuff like that, and carry, the younger kids on his back and things like that. And that was it. You had to be strong in order to help your brothers and sisters, and it was tied with the notion of community. Strength was always tied with the notion of community, always, until recently. You know, like some people made like a more competitive approach or something like that, which can be healthy in some regards, but somehow it became really, for many people, all about the ego.
Sure.
And somehow I don't care if you can jump like 1 foot further away from me. It's not going to happen too often, but that will definitely happen because you travel, you meet people, they're stronger.
Right,
You meet
right,
stronger people all the time.
right.
I was just kidding, right? Stronger people are everywhere. So I don't care.
Mhm.
It's all about what you can do, how you behave. It doesn't matter if you can lift, something crazy and can't help a friend when he's in need, right? Or even help a stranger if he needs
Yeah.
something. So community is super important. And in that regard, meaning in motion, what is that? It's just, I've launched it, I say platform, I don't know if that's an accurate term, but anyway, I've launched this platform called Meaning in Motion in order to promote the relationships between athletics and ethics. To me, this is like the perfect rhyme ever. Athletics and ethics, or the relationships between strength and mindfulness, you know, or between movement and spirituality. And I'm being careful there. Obviously, spirituality it doesn't have to be religious or
Right, right, right. Yeah.
like I come from a Tibetan Buddhist
Oh,
background. I've been studying with
nice.
Tibetan teachers, and it really influenced my outlook and the
Uh-huh.
way my philosophy and Parkour and everything. But it doesn't have to be religious,
Yeah.
obviously. And I want to promote these all these relationships, like I said, movement and mindfulness and so forth. And to do so, well, there's the website, which is meaning-in-motion.com. There's a Facebook page, facebook.com/meaninginmotion. Uh, but there's a newsletter, and the newsletter, it's entirely free. Obviously, we just share a bunch of advice and inspiration of the day and things like
It's a
that.
good one. Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Well, thanks. Well, it gives, like, I'm encouraging people to sign up because they get like this free journal, like the
Hmm.
Mindful Movers
Yeah.
journal. They're going to be it's going to be upgraded every once in a while. It's just a tool. You don't have to use it, but there's a bunch of ideas in there. There's also a free short ebook, actually called Meaning in
Uh-huh.
Motion,
Yeah.
um, which you can find on iTunes and Barnes and Nobles and Indigo and all those places. It's free. It's super short, but it can give you ideas as to how to practice mindfulness exercises and combine it with your art, whatever your art is. It could be, kettlebell
Uh-huh.
or yoga or running, but I'm sure you're going to find at least a couple of ideas in there that can be helpful, hopefully.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and I'm again just so happy that I can be a part of this as well. And it was really, I was very surprised when you asked me to be a part of your book. Because I'm not some well-known kind of you know guy in the ADD community or anything, but I do enjoy moving a little bit though. So that's what I like doing that. Is there any advice that you would give? We're going to wrap it up here in a little bit, but there's any advice that you would give to our listeners out there who want to gain more awareness in whatever they're doing? What is the one thing that they could start doing today that would help them that you think? Big question.
There, there's one thing. Often enough, slowing down is precisely what we need. It's like one of the most simple and yet maybe the most useful advice. Slowing down. And that applies once again to many things in life. When you're in a rush and when you're so busy, this is often, strangely enough, the time you need to relax the most.
Yeah.
And the time you need to slow down in order to see things with more clarity and so forth. So, but this is very true when it comes to movement training, because I see people all the time either either say teenagers or younger people, it doesn't matter, or even in your 20s or 30s, it doesn't matter. Like very powerful people, like naturally they've got like powerful legs, or they've got like a lot of energy and stuff, and they want to go like doing the massive jumps and stuff. And it's fine. I mean, you have lots of energy. You have somehow to, you have to move. It's fine. It's actually a very healthy thing to do, wanting to move. But learning to slow down will also help you to develop a better technique. The landing often is neglected. All the phases of an actual vault or of an actual technique are often neglected. We just think about the clearing, right? About the actual, few seconds we are in midair and this feels so nice, and then we get excited and we have a shit landing. So learning to slow down might help these guys, but it might also help, some people, we see them in classes in Quebec, they're not necessarily into sports or training. Some of them might have, bit of weight they would like to lose, or they're not, they're a bit shy, they're not super at ease in their body. And you know what, guys, it's entirely fine too. You're gonna find your own rhythm. You can actually enjoy whatever progress you're making. Once again, like we said, it's not about the destination, right? It's about the process. So even these guys can slow down. And slowing down is not laziness. It's very different. I just want to point that out. It's not laziness. It's about mindfulness. So one of the best cue that I can give to people when it comes to slowing down is using the sense of touch. As stupid as it may sound, okay? One just have to remember that the human body, right, or the human being, finds different sorts of food, right? We say food, but obviously we think of like actual food, like fruits, or but we actually feed on or feed upon.
Feed upon or feed on depends on what you
Feed upon ideas to
Okay, yeah. Okay.
relationships, and well, it might sound a bit esoteric, but what I'm saying is that in order to be healthy and happy, we have different types of foods, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Textures,
Yeah.
textures, whatever you can actually feel with your sense of touch is of foremost importance. It gives you a lot of information about the world around you, right?
Yeah.
We're always talking about the visual nowadays, right? And there's a lot of noise too. And somehow we seem to forget how important textures are, And that's why at some point we see tree huggers, to gardening at some point in their life, like, oh, I want to garden. I didn't know I had a passion for gardening. And it's just that because somehow something's missing, right? And they need to touch stuff. And in art du déplacement, but almost any kinds of training, this is of foremost importance, and we will often skip that. So in art du déplacement, often we start with what we call QMs, or quadrupedal movements, you'd call, walking on all fours or all three, sometimes. And just feeling how the ground, feels, and the concrete and the wood and stuff is super important. And really feeling how your weight shifts, and even when you do a regular, like a step vault or a monkey vault or a conch vault or whatever on a bar, getting that feeling is of foremost importance. So slow down, get the feeling.
Love it. Very good stuff. Very good stuff. Well, you know what? We're going to have to end it here, but I really want to get you on the show again. And so next time we can go into some more topics in depth. With that in mind, for those of you listening, please send some questions. If you've got some questions that you would love to ask Vincent next time, please send those away. Also, comments. We love to get comments from all of you. Let us know what you think about this as well. Keep listening. Keep feeling, slow things down, and enjoy the process. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
For more great info, join us over at gmb.io. And be sure to check us out on iTunes and